Let's be friends.
Have you not?
Here we go.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to the Ambassador Wing and another episode of the Ultra Retro Rewind podcast. And today I have got with me three alums of the Ambassador Wing, Miss AVP Alicia Victoria Parker, her charming and dashing husband, Mr. Jack Beers, and a longtime friend. These are all longtime friends, but this guy I have known way too long, Mountains of Elysium. And today we are bringing you our review of Casablanca and the Maltese Falcon. You could almost say this is a double bogey review. So make sure you smash that like button, share this review out with all of your friends who are fans of ultra retro cinema, and especially of the work of Mr. Humphrey Bogart. And, well, without much ado, let's jump in. Alicia, Jack, Elysium, good to see you all. Glad to have you all back. And let's do ladies' choice. Alicia, which movie do you want to do first?
I would choose Casablanca first.
Okay. All right. So Casablanca, this is probably one of the most quoted, most well-known black and white movies ever made.
Yes.
It's
Of all
got
the chat rooms, of all the
Yes.
chat rooms in all the world, we had to walk into this one.
Yes, and I mean, it's a beginning of a beautiful friendship.
I am shocked, I say, shocked to see gambling at this facility.
Here's looking at you, kid.
It has a star-studded cast, of course, Mr. Humphrey Bogart, Paul Henreid, Ingrid Bergman. Oh my gosh, those eyes. Those gorgeous, beautiful eyes. And of course, Mr. Peter Lorre, Sidney Greenstreet with his fez and his rather rotund appearance and talent. A story of espionage, of love, of loss, of rebellion. It's like Star Wars before Star Wars. So, Alicia, Jack, Elysium, your thoughts on Casablanca?
So the thing that stuck out to me is that this name actually means White House. So Casa means like house, and then when you say Blanca, it means white. So basically, that stood out to me like White House, but there has nothing to do with the White House, like politically speaking. So that's kind of interesting. And basically, this takes place in the middle of literally during World War II, and they really didn't know how they were going to end this, because this is one of the things that's notorious about this film. It had multiple endings, because even the stars themselves didn't know how it was going to end. And it's even been parodied in Bugs Bunny, because it called it Carrot Blanca at one point. And I mean, it's a really classic story. I mean, it's basically, it seems like a guy that's trying to help people get out of this environment where the war's going on. They're trying to get visas. They're trying to find their way out. And then he runs into his long-lost lover. And he hadn't seen her since the last time she deserted him, basically. And when he sees her again, it all comes flooding back to him. Oh, I remember you. But what are you doing here? Because what triggers it is when he had his piano player, who's played by Dooley Wilson, who was actually a drummer in real life. And so he plays this song that Rick told him to never play again as time goes by. And that song plays throughout the film in multiple versions. And he starts playing the song as time goes by, because she says, "Play it, Sam. Play as time goes by." Because instead of saying, "Play it again, Sam," she says, "Play it, Sam." And it all comes flooding back to him like, why is she back in my life again?
Well, and the interesting thing about this movie is it took place during World War II, and I think it was done right around the same time as World War II was going on, if I recall correctly.
Yes, 1941 was when it was filmed and released, or released in 1942.
Yeah, so I imagine in certain parts of Europe, this movie probably was extremely taboo, especially considering how it portrayed a certain group of Nazis.
Right?
Oh, Gesundheit.
especially Major Strasser, and I'm thinking,
Yeah.
what an a-hole. And I think, oh, wait a minute, he's a Nazi, so he has to be an asshole.
Yep, he drank the nasty water.
I did love the line. He says, "Welcome. This is a I'd like to introduce you to, was it Major Strasser? This man has given the Third Reich the reputation it currently enjoys." So kind of it was fitting. Or I may have recorded that wrong, but it was right.
No, it was right, because everybody's having had such a good time, and he's like, "Yeah, they outsang us." They sang.
He's embarrassed.
Yeah, they're singing some stupid German nasty, stinking, smelly song, and they all come in and start singing La Marseillaise.
Yeah, the French national anthem. Yes, that's correct.
And yeah, because I completely butchered that. I feel deeply sad, because one of my professors from college was actually from French, very, very French.
The Massacre then to help you with that.
Yeah. And to think about it, to put a bit of a comical spin on this, they have a sing-off, and the Germans get pissy about it because they lost.
Yes.
So.
Sorry, one of the things about those scenes were it was taken like during the war, and the extras were refugees. So the emotion on their face was absolutely genuine. The lady shown with crying her eyes out, she had lost everything and had been forced to flee, I believe was France. So when she was singing singing La Marseillaise, that meant everything to her. They were putting the full emotion of the moment into that scene. And for me, that scene is possibly one of the greatest in cinematic history. I actually broke down myself watching it. I'm saying, I know the history, I know what's going on here. And like being from Europe, Ireland play France every year. And every time we hear La Marseillaise, even the Irish fans join in singing La Marseillaise. It's such a stirring song.
It is. Jack, your thoughts, Casablanca?
Oh yeah, so this is one of those where it's the interesting part of that film is how it took place during World War II. So we've seen interviews where they talk about the I can't remember her name, the female lead. She talks about they filmed
Ingrid Bergman.
Ingrid Bergman, thank you. They filmed more than one ending because they weren't exactly sure how they were going to end it, whether or not she was going to, go with Bogart's character or go back with her husband and whatnot. They had multiple endings that they had filmed. I love Bogart's acting. I just overall, like every time I see Bogart in a film, I love how he steals the scene. Just the way he delivers his lines. It's done in a way. It's done so. It's just done so uniquely that it's like his signature. It's just the way he speaks. It's like his signature. He does the same. He speaks the same way in Maltese Falcon, and whatnot. And so, I always thought that was really just he was a great person to pick for the lead for those two roles, especially for Casablanca. The way he delivers those lines, it's just there's a reason why it's iconic. It's just because of how it was done. Elysium talked about how it wasn't just him. I mean, like they had a lot of actual refugees as background characters in the film, and of course they gave it their all when they did their parts. This was a really emotionally charged film. I would say it was a very emotionally charged film. It was filmed at an emotionally charged time. But at the same time, it was one of those films where it was just about it was a love story about these two former lovers who after not having seen each other for so long, they finally meet again. Suddenly those feelings are starting to come back. So, what does the female do? Does she go back to the husband, or does she go to Bogart's character? So, I thought that was really interesting.
Well, and you've got three really good, strong leading male actors in this. You've got Bogart, you've got Paul Henry as Victor Laszlo, you've got Claude Rains as the inspector, Louis.
Yes,
And
he does
I
a really good
mean,
job.
yeah. And those three guys have a dynamic between the three of them. Major Strasser, the actor who played him, to a degree, yes, but those three really carry the movie. Not to mention the actor who played Sam. I can't remember. Elisa, you mentioned his name. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Julie
What was his name?
Wilson. Julie Wilson.
Julie Wilson. If it hadn't been for those four plus Ingrid Bergman, I mean, they cast an incredible leading lady for this movie.
Mhm.
She was an absolute stunner in her day. I mean, even nowadays, you ask people, some of the great female actresses of the black and white era, they're gonna name her. She was a great actress. She was beautiful. She was talented, and she worked well with Bogart and Paul Henry. They both had a good dynamic. You believed that she was in love with him once upon a time, and you believed she loved her husband.
Mhm.
So it really plays well with those three in particular. But then you add in Claude Rains as Louis, and I mean, we all know what Claude Rains is best known for. That, of course, being the Invisible Man. Obviously, for this role, he was in a colorized version of the Phantom of the Opera, which I have seen and I absolutely love. It's been years since I've seen it, but I remember that one very well because it's not played as a pure horror movie as the previous version of the Phantom of the Opera with, oh, for heaven's sakes, I'm blanking on his name and I'm going to kick myself later.
Lon Chaney Jr.
Well, actually, I think it was Lon Chaney Sr. It was his father who played the original Phantom.
Yes.
So, Claude Rains pulls off, I think, a very well done French accent for a Brit who had a very strong and pronounced Cockney accent. I mean, he must have worked long and hard to get that French accent right because it doesn't sound like it's a put on or that he's parodying a French accent. He's doing as authentic a French accent as he could, and for a Brit, that's saying something.
Mm-hmm. Because so many times when people do the French accent, you can tell it's faked. But yeah, the dialogue's as good as this.
Go ahead, Elysium.
I think he played that role so well. I mean, I went to rewatch Casablanca and I said, this is a great movie. After watching it, I'm saying, no, this is better than great. This is one of the best I've ever seen. This is not a bum. There's not a bad performance in that movie. Every actor just shines. And like mentioned, like Captain Renault, Rick, was it
Victor Laszlo?
Victor Laszlo and
Paul Henry.
Yeah, they were just the way they played off each other. And like I had joked, I was saying that this is really a chick flick. You have one woman and two men are fighting over her, and both are two international kind of renowned. All everyone wants to know them. Everyone wants to have a piece of them. And I think it's a bit. I said, what a show. Well, the proto chick flick.
Well, here's a funny story from my own side of things. I have seen this movie numerous times since I was a kid. I love this movie. Mm-hmm. One of my closest friends from high school, and Madam Ambassador, had never seen it. They actually had a showing in my hometown back, I think, like 2 or 3 years ago. And it was for free. They were actually doing it in commemoration of the D-Day invasion. And I was like, okay, you two, we're going to see this. And we walked out, and I was like, okay, what'd y'all think? And my buddy Wes, he's like, damn, that was good. Why have I never seen it before? And Madam Ambassador, I was like, honey, what'd you think? She's like, you were right. It's great. So, the interesting thing about this is there is several characters of somewhat moral ambiguity. In particular, Monsieur Ferrari, played by Sidney Greenstreet, and of course you've got Peter Lorre with a cameo appearance at the beginning as Miss Ugati.
Mm-hmm.
And Jack has even got a bit of a moral ambiguous aspect to his character. I mean, Sidney Greenstreet, I mean, we'll get into him when we get to the Maltese Falcon. His character is very much a member of the criminal underworld in Casablanca, but you don't get the impression that he would do anything to hurt or kill someone unless he's driven to it. He's more of a classical ideal of a mobster almost.
Mm.
So, guys and gals, your thoughts?
Yeah, I was just about to say, my avatar, Captain Renault, he is really morally ambiguous. Exploiting, I think it was something I saw him saying, I'm kind of uncomfortable in some ways. He was exploiting vulnerable people. Even though he knew he would not genuinely hurt them, he would not put them out of the way if they refused. He would not take that personally and would not kind of do what Major Strauss did, like shut the thing down, hunt them down. He'd just go, oh, well, you've missed your opportunity. But it was how it helped Rick's character to really shine that you knew Rick was a good man deep down. When he was trying to exploit that lady to get those exit visas, and Rick gave her the money by letting her husband win at the roulette table.
Yes.
I'm going, I just kind of, for me, I was like, that's such a powerful moment. And he was trying to exploit her, but he did take it in the say, like, you've taken my prize. But wasn't bitter. And so there was like, he wasn't a level of evil. He was just, I actually, going back to our old reviews before, it reminded me of Londo Mollari.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of the kind of jaded old Republican, kind of cast out in an important position, but exploiting his position a bit and just kind of going along. Like he said, I blow with the wind, and at the moment it blows from Vichy.
That's true. One of the things I was thinking about Ugarte, the actor who played Peter Lorre, I could have swore I had you know, at least you look it up. I could have swore he played Igor somewhere, but he never did. But he looks like he'd be perfect for the role.
Especially the voice, yeah.
Yeah. Like in a Universal Monsters film or something.
But yeah, this movie's got a lot of great dialogue in it. I mean, I think about how Rick says, I don't stick my neck out for anybody, and yet he still does in this one. I mean, yeah. Or when Ilsa makes the comment, says, kiss me as if it were the last time, and I mean, it stands out, like, because she didn't know when she was going to see him again, and they didn't know, because the way the war was going on, things were so up in the air at that time. You never knew when would be the last time you would see somebody, and
the last time they saw each other was when they left France.
Yes. Well, he was deserted at the train station.
Yes.
Well, and the other interesting thing is this is a bit of a love triangle, but you don't see the two guys necessarily fighting over Elsa to any degree. They're not at odds with one another. I mean, yeah, Rick clearly still has feelings for Elsa, but he's not going to step on the toes of her husband. I mean, he was a freedom fighter in the past. He did. I mean, granted, he fought for the losing side, but at the same time, he was he was an idealist. He was a sentimentalist. So for him to try and take another man's wife, it wasn't in him to do that. Now that he knew that
Right.
Ilsa was in fact, now that he knew that Ilsa was in fact married, he was like, "No, I'm going to back away. This is some other guy's wife. I'm not going to try and do anything untowards."
Yeah, he even
And-
confessed about what happened the night before, but
Mhm.
did it in a way that protected her, so that so that he wasn't upset at her for doing so, because the way he explains it, she did it for the ticket, for the visas.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
do we believe that Elsa still had some feelings for Rick? Yeah, she did. She did clearly, but she stayed true to her vows of marriage to Victor. I mean, this is actually a love triangle, I think, done better and done more realistically than anything we've seen in like a soap opera, for heaven's sakes. I mean,
Soap
I
opera,
mean,
both of them would be fighting for them, and it's like, no.
yeah, the guys would be fighting over her or whatever the case may be, but in this case, there's a bit more realism to this love triangle than I would say in any other film, really, or like I said, even in an old time soap opera from like the 70s or 80s, or even if there are any still current soap operas still running. It's done with a sense of realism that I think you don't see very often, even now in current cinema, in current
Like
movies.
a sense of
Granted, you don't
maturity
have
that you don't see.
Yeah, exactly. Because Rick is a very worldly guy. He's been around the block. He's seen a lot of things. He's done a lot of things, obviously. And he runs this. He calls himself a saloon keeper. But he is a saloon keeper with a cause. He just doesn't realize it yet. And I have to say, at the end, when Victor and Ilsa are on the plane getting out, and him and Louis are walking off into the fog, and Rick's like, "You're coming with me," and Louis like, "Mm-hmm, yep," because they're going off to be freedom fighters. I can't remember the name of the town, but it's somewhere off away from Casablanca. And Rick says that very iconic line, "Louis, I think this is the start of a beautiful friendship."
Mm-hmm.
But you almost get the impression that they had been friends far longer than this. Before
Probably.
this,
Yeah, it just deepened after that situation, I would say.
yeah, they came to understand and respect each other on a deeper level. So, Elysium, Jack, Elysium, your thoughts on let's talk about Mr. Greenstreet's character, Signor Ferrari.
No. Fire away there.
I was gonna let
Yeah,
you start.
I know. Work away.
Well, how about I open it up? I mean, Sidney Greenstreet as Senor Ferrari. I mean, he was the inspiration for Jabba the Hutt
Okay.
when they were doing designs. When they were doing designs for Jabba the Hutt, they put a little red fez on his head, just like he wore in this movie. And he's charming. He's jovial. You get the impression that if he wanted you dead, you'd be dead. But he's there as a saloon keeper, as a businessman, as the head of the black market. So he's not going to kill you unless he has to. He's there to make a profit. He's a businessman, but he makes his money both legitimately and illegally. That's why I kind of paint him as a classic version of a mobster who would kill if needs be, but was there specifically to acquire power, influence, and money.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, he says himself he's an influential man and respected man, as leader of all illegal activities.
In Casablanca.
Mhm. Yes, in Casablanca. I don't know. I don't know about the rest of the world that.
But Casablanca was like almost like a hub of all worlds and stuff like that at that point. It's got like the Jewish community, it's got the problematic one that we don't want to mention too much, but we got them, we've got Americans. They're all merged together in this cul-de-sac, basically, in this one club, Rick's American Club, basically, and it brings them all together.
It's
Yeah,
like
Rick's
think of
Cafe
America.
American.
Yes.
It's like the idea of America in itself, the melting pot where everybody comes to fighting
Mm-hmm.
oppression. I think was part of the idea. And like I said, I agree. Your Ferrari was a fantastic character. Um, you could see that you're right. He was willing. He would kill if he had to, but he didn't want to kind of push things. He knew how to work with senior. Was it Claude Renault? He said, "I won't make things difficult for you. You don't take it difficult for me. You'll get your kickback. I'll get what I want, and we can all work out." So it was one of the things I liked about Casablanca. Even some of the ambiguous characters, you could kind of tell. Green Street, sorry, Senior Ferrari, you feel was willing to work for the good. He was just somebody earning an illegitimate coin, but I think they were trying to portray him as he is an ally if you just knew how to use him.
Yeah, I
Well,
think
and
that's a good one.
go ahead, Jack.
Oh yeah, no, I think it was a good idea. Yeah, like how he said that. Um, he was one of those guys who was like if you wanted out, you had to go through him. If you wanted out, if you wanted a visa and whatnot. Um, I love his quote. I can't remember exactly, but he said something about the Germans outlawing miracles, and they would take a miracle to get them out. Yeah,
Because he's talking to Ilsa and Victor Laszlo, and he's like, "You are in need of a miracle," and unfortunately, the Germans have outlawed miracles in Casablanca.
that's the yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, I have a brain for movie quotes, even obscure ones. The the other thing about Satan, this is a little minor thing, but I don't know if y'all noticed this or not. At the end of every scene where Ferrari is involved, he swats a fly.
I don't think I've noticed that.
I don't think I
No.
noticed that either.
In at
I
least two.
actually did, yes. 2 or 3 scenes at the very end, he always swats the fly at the very end.
Yeah, at least 2 or 3 times. It's the scene between the conversation between him and Rick when Rick is selling the cafe. If there's another conversation between him and Rick where I think he also, he's not selling. He wants to sell. He's wanting Rick to sell him the cafe American, but Rick's not interested. They're talking about a business deal. I think he does it there, and then at the end of the conversation between him and Victor Laszlo and Ilsa, he starts to fly again. So I think at least those 3 scenes he does that. And of course, this would not be the first time that Pierre Lorre and Sidney Greenstreet work together. Of course, when we get to Maltese Falcon, Pierre Lorre has a more substantial screen, or has a more substantial role in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
But this one, he has more of a cameo. And the chemistry between him and Humphrey Bogart is just, it's charming. He's like, "You really despise me, don't you?" He's like, "Well, if I thought any further of you, I might." It's one of those underhanded insults or unintentionally funny insults that you can't help like, damn, did he just burn him, but unintentionally? I mean,
Right.
that to me is just comical. I mean, One thing about Humphrey Bogart, he had a really good sense of comedic timing, but it was almost unintentionally funny. Not to mention the dialogue for this movie. It presented the way it was written. There were several lines in here that were unintentionally funny, but nowadays with our modern sensibilities, we find it extremely funny.
Yes.
I mean, this is on its bones a somewhat of a melodrama, that is true, but it's a melodrama with a message. It's about the freedom of the human spirit. It's about people coming together to defeat evil. And it's about people's thirst for freedom. And I think that's a message that is truly timeless. That's why this movie, granted 1941 to 2024, even though it's a black and white movie, it still holds up because the message, the performances, all those things still hold up.
It won the Academy Award for Best Picture.
And the music still played today. I mean, as time goes by, it was named after a TV show, and then they had the music played over and over again.
Mm-hmm. The other point here is Casablanca is really a feel-good movie. And every character, even the somewhat more morally ambiguous ones, you can, on varying degrees, relate to. Because each one of us has a little bit of Rick in us. We are somewhat of the cynic. But at the same time, we want to do good. We want to see good things happen for ourselves, for our friends, for our families, and so on. That's true of Rick. He's not evil, but he's been beaten up by life a little bit, but there's something still inside of him that still is hanging on to dear life and gets re-sparked by his quite literally chance meeting with Ilsa and Victor.
I'd say one thing to him, that even when he's at his worst, he when they shut down his club, he still says, I need to make sure all my staff are paid. I want to ensure they're on salary. How long will that take? How long have I got? You've got 2 weeks. Okay, let's see what we can do. He was willing to lose everything, and he put his people first, and he could see how everyone who worked for him was almost willing to die for him. Like, was it Carl, the bartender?
No, Carl was a waiter.
The waiter, that was Carl.
Sasha was the bartender. Yeah, Sasha was the bartender. He was Russian.
Yeah, Sasha and Carl. And he had great timing too. I think that character, the way he was speaking with the people at the table, Rick would like to speak with you. I'm the second most important banker in Amsterdam. Well, the most important banker is working as a dishwasher in the kitchen. So I can't remember the exact quote, but it's something like that.
That's pretty close. I think almost exactly on the money. Yeah.
What great timing, and how, even though he knew he could lose something, he was still looking out for Rick. I could see him pulling away the drink from him, saying, "No, you've had too much, boss." And so they cared for him just as much as he did for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that said more about Rick, the character, even though he was a bit ambiguous with that lady. He was he kind of dumped at the start. I've cast her aside. That was more for hurt. But when you see her coming back with a German officer later in the movie, you're going, was she gold digging? Was she just after him for his prestige and not after Rick himself? And he saw through it and just dismissed her. So at first seeing, I thought, yeah, he's treated her pretty badly. But when you saw her later and you saw how she was behaving, I think maybe Rick saw something in her that his actions weren't as cold-hearted as they were portrayed.
Well, not only that, when they start the sing off, she starts singing along with the French national anthem, and she finally realizes what she's done and who she's palling around with, and she's like, I've betrayed my own damn people. And you got the bartender Sasha who's hitting on the one girl, and when Rick tells her to tell Sasha to take her home, and he's like, make sure she gets home, and then you come straight back, and he's like, yes, boss. Like, you're not taking advantage of that young lady. You're coming straight back here. You got a job to do. So, well, any final thoughts on Casablanca, my friends?
I would say the fact that it was one of those movies that it was an uncertainty because it came out of when it came out, but it also came out at a time when Warner Brothers, which just celebrated their 100th birthday last year, they weren't even 20 years old. They started in 1923, and this is 1942. They were about 19 years. They've been around for 19 years at the time this came out. So it's just trippy to see how, I mean, just how much the industry had grown from there. I mean, just a few years before that, I mean, they were just bringing in sound. So,
Very
I
true.
actually do believe Casablanca, that is the third version of it that it had been released. There was some other versions of it.
yes,
I think it was a silent movie, I believe, and there was another one about 10 years previous. Don't know anything about them, but
yes, they were based off of something called Everybody Comes to Rick's, which was an American play that Warner Brothers bought.
And here it is, 2024, and we're still talking about the movie.
Yeah, it still holds up. I mean, it's a classic movie. Hopefully, it keeps on.
Well, so long as cinema endures, Casablanca will too itself endure. I mean, it is a pillar of what I would call modern cinema, because there have been elements lifted from it. There have been parodies of certain scenes from it. So it is truly timeless. It is part of the public and social consciousness.
and just say one thing, like it has so much more resonance this year, the past few years for me, than it had maybe 10 years ago. At the moment, Ireland has taken in the equivalent of our third largest city of refugees over the past 2 years. Like I believe it's 100,000 refugees, which for a country our size is a lot, and could actually be more. So seeing people, refugees coming in, and seeing what they're fleeing the war, and then seeing this, it has so much more meaning. And one thing I'd like them to remember, as you can see with those characters, like Louis Renault, I know where the wind is blowing. At that time, they were a puppet government of the Germans, and they had to work together with the people who had remained loyal to de Gaulle after the war. So you've got to realize you've got to be a decent person even in the darkest of times, like Rick. In some ways, like Captain Renault, not as much. He had his flaws, but even at the darkest times, we can be good people. And when it comes down to it, when it really has to happen, you have to stand up and do the right thing. Like Laszlo did. He was probably one of the most wanted men in Europe. And he walked into the middle of the Germans singing their national anthem and like says, play the Marseillaise. And when Rick just gave the band a nod and he led them, and you could see Elsa looking at him, you could see she really loved him. Rick was her ideal when she thought that man was dead. But you could see the way she was looking at him, that they were meant to be. And Rick was a dream another dream she'd fallen for, who had his history. So maybe that's my thoughts on the Marseillaise. On Casablanca. It's as relevant today as it was when it was released during World War II.
Yep, very true. So, Alicia, I know you need to bow out, my friend. Appreciate you
Yes.
being here. Appreciate your thoughts on Casablanca, and good to work with you again. So
And
make sure,
I can. I was about to say, kind of, this is my first time being on the stream with Alicia and Jack, and this could be the start of a beautiful friendship.
Well said, my friend.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thanks.
Okay, and once again, and thank you very much, Ambassador. Working with you
Hey.
for years, and you're always a gent. Thank you.
make sure it's not another 6 months before I see you again.
That's true.
Take care, bud.
Okay, take care.
Okay. And with that, we'll move on to Maltese Falcon. Now, this is a little more of a straight line plot. It's a murder mystery. It's about one of the greatest MacGuffins in the history of cinema. You could call it the granddaddy of all MacGuffins, the Maltese Falcon.
Hmm.
Based on a little bit of real world history, but also with a bit of that Hollywood flair. I mean, you've got Bogart, you got Pierre Lorre, you got Sidney Greenstreet once again, you've got Mary Astor, and you've got a very young Elsa Cook Jr. as the Gunsel. So, Alicia, Jack, let's open up the floor. Maltese Falcon.
Yeah. So that was when we saw that, we saw that before we saw Casablanca, and so as I said, this is where I was like, oh yeah, like this is where Bogart has some of his really good lines and stuff like that.
Yes.
Yeah. You're right. It is the idea that the Falcon. First of all, the name of the film is the Maltese Falcon. The name of the That's the name of the film, and then the entire movie is just about this Falcon, looking for this Falcon, and then once you find the Falcon, realizing that it's not exactly what they thought it was. They thought it was encrusted with jewels and gold and whatnot, and in the end, it was just this black painted Falcon. It was made out of wood or whatnot. Maltese. I looked at Maltese just because I wasn't exactly sure what it meant, and it's Malta. If you're from Malta,
Okay.
you're Maltese.
Yeah.
You're Maltese. Or if in this case the Falcon came from Malta.
Yeah, because the real world history behind this whole thing, well, at least the real world history that they based it on, a order of the Knights Templar were given the island of Malta for their work during one of the Crusades. And the Spanish King Charles had said, as part of your tribute, I want you to send me a Maltese Falcon every year. A real Falcon. But the Templars were like, no, we're good. For your first one, we're going to do something kind of special. And they commissioned this Falcon statue encrusted with jewels and all sorts of precious metals and so on and so forth. And then it gets the ship that's carrying it gets taken down by a bunch of pirates. And the pirates take it and covered in black paint and everything to conceal it and so on. And it just passes down through history and it's kind of lost and then found again, lost and found again. And then we open up with Sam Spade and his partner Miles Archer in their private detective business.
Yes.
I mean, if you think about it, Sam Spade is in a lot of ways the archetype private investigator or private detective. And every other private detective forever in both cinema and in novels is kind of based on a character like Sam Spade. So, Jack, Alicia, your thoughts?
I mean, in this one, there's not just one culprit. There's three of them. And you have to really pay attention to what's going on, or else you're going to follow the wrong lead. I mean, there's a lot of classic one-liners in this. Because one of the things Sam says is, "You're a good man, sister." I mean, it's trippy because Sam he says, "Oh, I don't carry a gun," and then you see people go into his apartment and they're looking for this gun, or he says, "I don't have the Falcon," and then they're tearing up his apartment trying to find it, and he keeps trying to say, "I don't have what you're looking for." They're like, "We don't believe you, so we're going to destroy your stuff."
What I like about this film as well is that it's a very early version of film noir, which is a whole new genre of itself. I think what it is it's a genre within a murder mystery genre where it's
Yes.
it's black and white. It's a bit of a darker mystery than they normally put out. And I think I mean, like for a whole decade from the 40s into the 50s, these types of movies kind of continued on, and they were very popular.
Oh yes. Well, I mean, even nowadays, I mean, murder mysteries is a story that people always flock to. I mean, one that me and Mam Ambassador had seen. This was a few years ago. We went to see an adaptation of Agatha Christie's Death on the Nile. I mean, granted, from a somewhat different genre, but still within the whole murder mystery, whodunit type of genre. And Maltese Falcon very much is within that because you have the death of Sam's partner, Miles Archer, and he's trying to figure out who killed him, and then he's also trying to figure out who killed Mary Astor's partner. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but they're trying to figure out who killed him or where he's gone to, and we find out that he in fact was killed. And
Floyd
then
Thursby, that was his name.
Floyd Thursby. Thank you, Alicia. Thank you. The crux of this whole thing is somewhat fantastical in terms of the Maltese Falcon, but it boils down to a somewhat multi-layered whodunit. And that in and of itself, we always, as human beings, we love to solve a mystery. We want to figure out who did what and why. That's why murder mysteries or mysteries of any type, even if murder is not involved, are always so intriguing to us. It's that part of our brain that has to solve the problem of, okay, why did this happen? Who did this? Why did they do it? And for what reason did they do it? Or whether by what means did they do it? In this case, it was a simple shooting. And we find out later that it was in fact Mary Astor's character who did the initial killed Miles Archer, because Miles was googly-eyed over because, let's be honest, Mary Astor's character, very lovely. But we come to find out, not exactly, she might be beautiful on the outside, but she's got a very twisted and convoluted soul, if you want to put it that way. So, Alicia, Jack, your thoughts on that?
So yeah, I mean, like the idea of the whodunit, where it was like initially everyone thinks it's Bogart's character who probably did it at one point, and he's trying to figure out himself. He's trying to figure out who's done it. Really makes a captivating mystery.
Yeah, I mean, he has the perfect line. He says everyone has something conceal, and there's a lot of people that are concealing different things, whether it's the Maltese Falcon itself, or they're trying to find out what Mary's intentions are with this kind of thing, or even with the people that are following him saying, "Oh, we want to know, do you know the whereabouts of where the Maltese Falcon is?" And there's a lot of concealment because one of the things he does in this, which is very clever, is he ships himself the Maltese Falcon when he finds out where it is. He puts it into one of these storage lockers and he gives the key. And then you think, at first I was thinking it's not in that, he's not going to just give it up. But yeah, he gives it up. But the guy thinks, oh, where's the jewels and everything? And then when he starts stabbing it, he realizes, wait a minute, this isn't the jewel encrusted bird I was expecting. This is just a plain lead paint Falcon.
Right. Yeah, it wasn't as jewel encrusted as they thought.
Right.
I mean, The interesting thing is you keep expecting Cindy Greenstreet's character to show up, especially if you know this movie well. But his introduction is delayed rather significantly, not to mention the Falcon itself. We have an idea from the poster art what the Falcon might look like, but we don't know exactly what it looks like unless you're familiar with the actual with the movie itself, if you've seen it before. And once you get the introduction of Peter Lorre's character, I can't remember the name. I hate myself for this. I can't remember the name of Peter Lorre's character, and yet I should.
Cairo.
Cairo, yeah, Cairo. Thank you again, Alicia. He's the first He's the first character, and he's got that tuxedo suit. He's got his walking stick. He's got his cigarettes and so on. He seems rather a dapper, very slight fellow, but somebody that you necessarily he has that small holdout pistol, and his appearance would make you think he's not any great threat, but at the same time, you get the impression this is a guy that if you put him in a corner, he's going to get you're in for a fight, because Mr. Cairo is not anybody that you necessarily want to trifle with.
No, he's the one. He's looking for that Falcon as well, and he, right away he starts pulling guns out. And as for Casper, what was it? What's his name? Fat Man?
Gutman.
Gutman.
Casper Gutman.
Yeah. So
a little bit on the nose.
Yeah. Yeah. So his whole aspect of it is just like he's a little over the top.
Yeah, but you know what? Cindy Greenstreet plays this part so well. I mean, I think this is his second most well-known part that he's known for is Casper Gutman from Maltese Falcon, and of course the other one being one we just discussed in Maltese Falcon or in Casablanca of Monsieur Senor Ferrari. And he doesn't have the fez, but he wears a bowler hat and he wears that evening coat and everything in the scene where they drug Rick.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't seem all that threatening, but then of course he has his Gunsel played by Elsa Cook Jr. And here's a skinny little kid in a trench coat with a fedora and apparently a couple of I guess those would be 1911s more than likely. So I think because that would be the most prominent semi-automatic pistol at the time, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not somebody you necessarily want to push around, but yet Sam pushes him around on more than one occasion, oftentimes gets the best of him. So he might be quick with a gun, but in all other ways, he's not that threatening. And the one thing that is interesting about Sam is he seems to be an expert at disarming people with guns, even though he doesn't carry one himself. You almost get the impression that he studied with somebody on how to disarm a person who's carrying a gun.
I mean, he can disarm a person with just the way he speaks.
Yes, that's true. I mean, this is a private eye who doesn't carry a gun.
Yeah.
That's uncommon, particularly in the time period in which this movie takes place.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we don't have a specific time period, but you get the idea that this is probably post-war, World War II, more than likely.
Right.
So
possibly World War I, because World War II hasn't officially kicked off, I think, at this point. It's maybe in the middle of the war.
Well, it was released in 1941, so the war was going on, just not in the U.S.
So yeah, that's a distinct possibility as well. So, but time period aside, you've got all these people to varying degrees attached to this thing, the Maltese Falcon. But Sam's only real Mo um, priority is finding who killed his partner, Miles Archer. He even said that Miles was a bit slow, too easy to be pulled in by a pretty face. Anything in particular, the carry that Mary Astor plays in this movie, because he pull and but he's talking to Mary Astor's character towards the end, and he's like, "There's a code amongst private detectives that when your partner's killed, that you have to do whatever is necessary to find out who did that so that you can make it right." Now, the weird thing is you've got another love triangle here, but in this case, Sam has absolutely no interest in Miles's wife.
Right.
She's more interested in Sam than he is in her. But his primary goal is figuring out who killed Archer.
Right.
But here's the other interesting thing as well, and obviously get y'all's thoughts on this. No sooner does Miles get killed, but he's like, have his name taken off the office door and the windows. So
I was
go
going to
ahead.
say something about that. Yeah, I was a little surprised at how fast he made that decision. It was the same day.
Roughly, yeah.
Yeah, and by the middle of the movie, they had already removed the name from the door.
Hmm.
Yeah,
They
And
got
I
rid
think
of it
from the
really
windows
quick.
too.
I
Yes.
think they were on their way to doing the windows. I think.
Hmm. And his secretary, his receptionist, whatever way you want to address her, a classic Girl Friday if I had ever seen one.
Yes, she is.
And the way he addresses her, he calls her doll, calls her angel, all those things, but you don't get the impression that it's meant in a romantic capacity. It's more of a term of endearment more than anything else.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
she's more like a kid sister in a way to him in a way. He respects her a lot.
hmm yeah. I mean, he asks her opinion about Mary Astor's character. What do you think about her? She's like, she seems okay. There's something kind of off about her, but I trust her. He's like, you trust her enough to put her up for a couple of days, and she's like, I'd have to get a hold of mom because
Yeah.
here she is
Or
a reception. Here she is
what's your?
go ahead,
I
Jack.
was I was just gonna say, what's your woman's into Western say about her? Is I think was one of the quotes.
Yeah, I think it's something like
Yeah,
that.
I think that's what I think that's what Sam said to his gal Friday, as I'm going to call her, because she is essentially that is essentially what he is. She is to him, and well, when Miles was still alive, their girl Friday. She did all the gopher work. She did a lot of the leg work, in certain ways. But here she is. She's a receptionist and a gopher for a private detective agency, and she still lives at home with mom. So
Yeah.
that to me is the more comical thing.
I think because at that time she's considered like an old maid at that point and everything like that. Because a lot of women at that time they didn't think of living on their own unless they because to live on their own it was like almost quote scandalous. I think so.
Yeah, back in the 40s, yeah, I think you're right on that one, Alicia. Because to put this in a little bit of a real world context, my grandparents, my mother's parents, my grandmother was 19, going on 20 when she met my grandfather, who was he was in his late 20s or like just turned 30 when they married. And then he went off to serve in World War II. He came back, and by 46, mom was in the picture. So I think you're right on that in terms of women living on their own. They probably did stay at home until they did get married. So, um, let me ask you: there's one scene in this movie that's extremely iconic, and that's the scene when they're all in Rick's apartment. They've gotten the Falcon and so on. They've knocked out Vilmer, the Gunsel, Ellis
Mm-mm.
Cook Jr.'s character, and he wakes up. He comes to after being knocked out, and they're all staring at him, and he finally realizes what the hell's going on. So, your thoughts on that scene, guys?
That's a really powerful scene. I mean, they use that iconic line saying, "This is the stuff dreams is made of," because they've had so much right in defining this Falcon because it's worth so much money,
Mm,
and now it's worthless. Like, whoa.
right. I mean, just realizing. I mean, just think of finding some sort of ancient artifact that was told to have riches beyond riches, and then you finally find it, and it's not. There's no gold or riches. Maybe it's something else. Maybe back then, rice was the rice was the gold of that day, and now it's all just rotten um, millet or whatnot. So
That is true too. Well, what I was referring to was the scene when Wormurk wakes up, and they it's almost like they edited that particular shot where he looks at Sidney Greenstein's character and Pierre Lorre and then Mary Astor and then Bogey, and he realizes, oh crap, they're selling me down the river. So that particular scene, what did y'all think? What were y'all thoughts on that one? I mean,
I didn't mind that.
It works. I mean, it's definitely stands out for sure.
so I will say in terms of what you brought up, Jack, the Falcon. It is the stuff that dreams are made of because you dream of getting this artifact, and you can be rich and wealthy, and you don't have to worry about anything for the rest of your life. You have this. You could sell it off if you want to. You could keep it for yourself. You could go on tour with it. Granted, you're gonna have to have a lot of security with you, and you could go around the world, around the country, saying, "This is my journey to find the Maltese Falcon." It brings you fame and fortune in a lot of ways. Or you could
Hmm.
be like Gutman and Cairo and be like, "Nope, we're just going to keep it for ourselves, or we're going to sell it and just have the money, and we'll be happy." Let me ask the two of you: if you came across an artifact like the Falcon, what would you do? Would you sell it or would you keep it? And if you kept it, would you keep it privately or would you publicize it?
It would depend on how well I can take care of it. I've actually had this idea where I would want to buy. I have some cells. I have some cartoon cells from the
Mm-hmm.
'80s,
Mm-hmm.
and when I bought them, I went ahead and went as far as to buy special shadow
Frame.
cases
Mm-hmm.
so that um, they can be preserved. It's not they're not touching the background. It's a special way to frame them and everything. Uh,
Right.
I was only able to do that because I can afford to do that. I've
Mm-hmm.
seen these prop auctions where they're selling things that I would love to have, like an animatronic gremlin, for instance. But
Mm-hmm.
because from these are the gremlins from the '80s,
Mm-hmm.
what do you call it? The
Latex.
latex is
Mm-hmm.
rotting. It's not as good. So suddenly, if you buy it, it becomes your job to preserve it. It becomes your
Mm-hmm.
job to make sure that it is there for future generations.
Yeah.
And so, if I can't do that, I wouldn't keep it. I would do my best maybe to just donate it to someone who could, or sell it to someone who could.
A friend of mine sent me a picture. This is several months ago of a museum display of one of the original gremlin puppets of Gizmo himself. And it was just laying in a case and it had this horrific expression on its face. The way they just flopped it down, they didn't propped it, they just laid it in the case and didn't do anything with it. They didn't try and display it properly. And I'm like, that's a desecration. This is
Yeah,
Gizmo from
and,
Gremlins, one of the most iconic films of the 80s.
and the latex
You,
will rot. You
Yeah.
know.
I mean,
Happened
this
with the
is
Ninja Turtles costumes as well.
Yeah, unfortunately.
well. I mean, yeah. Unfortunately, latex does eventually rot. I mean, it's just the nature of the material. So unless you're able to properly preserve it. But this was in fairly decent condition. There was no signs of deterioration or rot to it. But they didn't put it on a stand. They didn't try and put any type of backdrop in the case or anything. They didn't try and do a replica or something of the box that he was in when
Mm,
Billy's dad brought him home. They just had it laying in a case.
Right.
that's lazy. I mean, I have an
Yeah.
Orville screen use badge, and we preserve that,
Yeah.
and we're gonna add the details to it when once we get it. But it's preserved properly. If not, it's gonna just go.
Well, and you have to ask yourself the question: do Gutman and Cairo ever track down the real Maltese Falcon? And you have to
Possibly.
ask the question: was that the real Maltese Falcon? Was that kind of a burn from the Knights of Malta to King Charles of Spain because they didn't really care for him, even though he gave them the island, but he's like, I demand tribute. They're like, okay, fine, we're going to send you a tribute. We're going to send you a lead bird. I'm just saying. What if that was actually the Maltese Falcon the whole damn time?
It could have been.
I think it was.
It could have
I
been all
think
the
it was.
jewels fell off over time. Maybe if they did too,
That's
to save
You know,
it.
possible.
depending on how well they encrusted it, that would stay on unless the pirates took all the jewels and stuff off and sold them individually, which, knowing pirates, they potentially could have. Or they could have kept it intact and sold it off for a vast sum. I
Yeah,
mean, pirates are very pragmatic that way. They'll sell whatever way they can sell it.
yeah.
They'll
Or
get
maybe
the
this was a
highest profit
duplicate
that they
of
can get
that, and
for
they
it.
kept the original somewhere. The original could still be
That's
out
possible
there.
too. Yeah, and that's true too. But I think the one thing about the multi-sock I enjoy the most is the interplay between Bogart and Greenstreet and Laurie. I mean, put aside Mary Astor and Nelson Cook Jr., those three once again have a great dynamic. They work so well off of each other, regardless of who's doing the writing for the movie that they're in. Those three in particular, and granted, Peter Lorre has a lot more screen time in this movie than he does in Casablanca,
Mhm.
but there's such a great balance between the three of them.
He-
And
yeah.
you almost get the impression that Bogart was like, obviously he was the leading actor in this. He's like, I get to work with these two again. Oh hell yes, yeah, I'll work with them again. Or in this case, obviously Maltese Falcon came out first, and they work so well together that he's like, I get to work with these two on another movie. And Claude
Right.
Rains, yeah, sure, absolutely, I'll do it. I mean, Humphrey Bogart was, I think, in a lot of ways, the first true male, prominent leading man in Hollywood. Granted, there were lots before him, but for like the 1940s through the 50s until eventually he passed and everything, um, he was the guy. He was one of the guys. He was one of the guys that everybody wanted to really work with because he was that good. I mean, obviously, he married his wife, Lauren Bacall. The copy of Casablanca I have is on Blu-ray, and there's actually a featurette where she's talking about his career
Oh,
and
nice.
everything from her perspective. It's actually very insightful. She does a great job talking about his career before they met, and then his career and everything when they were married. And you can tell that during that time, I don't know exactly when that featurette was made. Obviously, this is Lauren Bacall in her later years and everything, but she was still very, very, uh, very attractive and everything, even for an older lady. You could tell she was still carrying a torch for him, and that to me is a sign of true love. And
Yeah.
I appreciate that sort of thing, especially with old Hollywood, because nowadays you just don't see that sort of thing with new Hollywood. It doesn't
No.
exist, unfortunately. But any other thoughts on Maltese Falcon, guys? You want to share? Anything you want to bring up?
Just I thought it was very funny when Sam and Cairo, like Cairo pulls out the gun, Sam just like knocks him out, and then he leaves, and he comes back, and Cairo wakes up and how dare you punch me? I mean, they could have been a really good comedy duo as well if they wanted to be.
Well, and the funny part about that scene is Cairo gets his gun back and he holds him up again and he's like, this time I'm going to search, and Sam starts laughing. He's like, okay,
Go
pal,
ahead.
whatever you say. Go
Go
right
ahead.
ahead.
I'm not gonna stop you.
Yeah, like really? He's like, you're that determined? Okay, be my guest. You're not gonna find the damn thing, but be my guest.
Like, I just found out about it right now. How am I supposed to have it already?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's
I
ironic
mean, this
that-
guy is. Go ahead, Alicia.
So there's this guy who's dying. His flying word is Falcon, and it reminds me of Citizen Kane, where his dying word is Rosebud.
Oh, right. Yeah, the Captain Jacoby from the ship. Yeah.
Yes.
You know, Falcon. And he
Joink.
just drops dead. And Sam's like, why couldn't he have stayed alive a few minutes longer so I could actually find
Right.
I mean,
Yes.
like, Sam at this point is getting so darn frustrated with this whole situation. He's like, why couldn't you stayed alive for a few more minutes so I could at least found out who killed you? But no, you had to drop dead right in my doorstep. Like, thanks a
Say
lot,
Falcon.
I mean, it's at times almost comical how this movie goes, but at the same time, you're dealing with murders, you're dealing with international intrigue, you're dealing with an artifact that may not even be what it's supposed to be. And as Sam said, the stuff that the dreams are made of, which is actually quoted in another 80s movie, in a movie from the 80s called Explorers. And they actually use that line of dialogue there. I think it stars Joaquin Phoenix, Ethan Hawke, and another kid, and they are contacted by aliens from outer space, and they're given this technology to create an invisible force field that can travel through space, and they take an old tilt-a-whirl car and turn it into a spaceship. and at the end, the alien says to him, "The stuff that dreams are made of." So, well, guys, thank you very much for being here today. I will say it. I've missed working with you too, and I've also with Elysium as well. And I
Thanks
hope
for
you
having
all,
us.
We appreciate it.
guys, anytime. You know that, anytime. Just to everybody out there, I hope y'all enjoyed this review. Make sure you leave your comments down below on either Casablanca or the Maltese Falcon. Any points me and the rest of the crew may have missed out on, or something that we brought up. And keep eye on my social media accounts on X and Instagram and everything for the next Ultra Retro podcast and everything. I'll be uploading this one. Well, I'll leave that part out. I'll cut that out. Once this gets uploaded, make sure you keep an eye on my channel as well. I'll be doing a watch along here in a day or two and everything for Independence Day. So be sure to keep an eye on that. And of course, follow these three, including Mountains of Elysium. And guys, great having you. Everybody out there in Internet land, I hope you all enjoyed this as well. So until next time, y'all take it easy, and these are the ambassadors.